So during Lent, we talk about fasting and abstinence, like I said earlier, and I've said earlier on in the other episode that we were running. And of course, again, addiction also, we talk about cutting down, which is more like a fasting, and of course, abstinence. So in addiction, we talk about sober, being sober, and then we also talk in the Lent also about cutting down or fasting or abstinence, cutting down the quantity of food you eat, or cutting down on the frequency of a particular kind of behavior, or actually totally abstaining from it. When you abstain for it, you don't do it at all. That's what it means. And abstinence is something we talk about every now and then in addiction. So we can abstain from food, abstain from food during, certain food in particular, we talk about abstinence from meat or things that has blood. So that's why not just on Wednesdays or Friday, I always encourage people during the period of Lent, if you can just cut that down. And the other time we're talking about the benefit of that to your health. So also you can cut down drinks. And when you talk about drinks now, I'm talking about not just water. Of course, you may eat, you may drink, you may not drink. Some will say drinking water during Lent is not violating the rule of Lent because you need to be hydrated, okay? For health reason, we will also talk about that. Yet for health reason, not drinking water can also still help you. We have talked about that before. To cut down or to abstain from sex, even if you are married to, to use the time of Lent, to the time to actually, give each other a break a little bit from all this hazu. And then, like the scripture says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, that of course the husband is not the owner of himself, the wife is. Likewise, the wife is not the owner of herself, the husband is. He said, therefore, you should not deprive each other of sex, he said, except for the time of prayer and fasting. And this is the time of fasting, but of course, you must have agreed that you are going to do that together to abstain from sex during this Lent. Maybe next week we'll be talking about something relating to that, whether having sex actually violates the issue of Lent or fasting. If having sex actually break your fast, we'll be looking at that, and we'll dwell into that more, how that helps us in our spiritual and the psychological and relational health. So, of course, we also look at there are other habitual things that we can abstain of, or we can even cut down from. We can talk about from gambling, those who gamble, those who do shopping, they have habitual shopping, those who do play video games or who spend all their lives on the internet, not because they are doing any particular work, probably because of whatever they are just doing, and any other behavior that we have that actually, even exercises, that can actually constitute, of course, has become so habitual that you feel you can't do without them. Even doing sport, it can also be like that. You think you can't do without them. Time of Lent is the time to take control of your life, not letting those activities or those materials of substances actually take hold of you, but you are taking control of yourself, becoming the man or the woman of yourself, becoming the one that you're able to pave way for yourselves, not allowing something to dictate what you do. So I know this can be done when one is trying to overcome addiction, and then Lenten season can be the best time for you to begin to actually get away with your addiction with the help of God, of course, with the help of God. Again, I'm saying that trying to take control of yourself, especially can be and then taking hold of your life back can be achieved during Lenten season. So for the person with addiction, the person with addiction can be powerless over the substance of abuse or the behavior of addiction. Powerless in the sense that, because if your substance, for example, hijacks the brain and begin to manipulate the brain in such a way that you begin to respond to your brain, that your willpower actually has nothing to do at this moment anymore. Your brain tricks you so that the only thing you think about is the substance of abuse, either is the drinking or alcohol, or you're talking about shooting heroin or snorting or snuffing cocaine or smoking cigarettes or tobacco or marijuana or whatever it is that it is, or you know. And of course, those behaviors that I've mentioned also, behavior of addiction, it could be food, your manner of eating, and that thing. So, and many persons with addiction also, they believe that only God can help them do that. And I think this is the right time for you to do it. This time of Lent is the time because you are God conscious, and the abstinence and the cutting down you are doing, you are doing it because you want to increase your relationship with God. So that is very important. And we know that walking in and, of course, walking with God during Lent can be a great moment to hand over those unsuccessful period of letting go of stopping whatever addictive behavior you are doing. You can hand them over to God during this Lent, who is able to deliver you from the possession of addictive drugs and, of course, from the addictive behaviors. These behaviors or this activity that have actually ruined your relationship with your family, with your spouse, with your children, with your colleagues at work, and that actually destroy your world for you, that have made you look like you are not a man or a woman of yourself anymore. So this is the time for you to actually take care of those things. So we'll be looking at what are those things that we are addicted to, and how we are going to actually be able to walk through them to use this Lenten season, the time of recovery, put it that way. Using the Lenten season as a time of recovery, where again what the damages that have been caused by drug abuse and addiction, and the damages that have been caused by your addiction to different kind of, let's take for instance, if for shopping, that your family actually are not well taken care of because all the money you have is on shopping and things that are actually not necessary for you. So we'll be looking at how you can break that chain of addiction, how you can remove yourself or remove the yoke and the burden of addiction from your neck, using the power and the grace of Lent, using the power and the grace of Lent that God has given to us in a very special way to overcome all our urges, all our pleasure-seeking attitudes, to free us to be the person God really wants us to be. So when we come back from break, we're going to be going on break right now. If you come back from break, we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at what are those addictions that we have, and of course, what can we do to break the chain of addiction, to free ourselves to be who we are meant to be, and then to be able to connect to ourselves, to God, and then to others. Stay tuned.
Capuchin TV, your Catholic broadcasting ministry.
The Psychospiritual Therapy Institute, which we of the Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, in collaboration with Monsieur Haken, have set up, is a project that I am very excited about, and I am very happy that I am part of the birthing of this project. It is aimed at healing of pastoral agents that run into problem on account of widespread trauma, on account of burnout, on account of addictions, and all kinds of problems that pastoral agents do have. But with this project of the Psycho-Spiritual Institute, we shall now be training experts in psychospiritual therapy who will be available in various countries, various dioceses and congregations to help their colleagues who are in difficult life situations of an emotional and psychological nature.
Liturujia Katoliki, sakramenti, kuungama, ekaristi, sala, nyimbo, neno la Mungu, ibada takatifu. Jiunge nasi kila siku ya Jumapili saa 1:30 usiku na Jumatatu saa 4 asubuhi kwa Liturujia Katoliki na Padre Boniface Mukwe.
Capuchin TV, your Catholic broadcasting ministry.
Welcome back from this little break, and then again we are talking about Lent and addiction today. And my name once again is Joyzy Pius, Egunjobi, Reverend Father, and this is Capuchin TV, the program which we run every Thursday from 2:30 to 3 3 p.m. Eastern African time. So we've been talking about the addiction and some things that are related between addiction and Lent. That when during this Lent, we talk about abstinence and fasting. Also in addiction, we talk about fasting also in terms of cutting down, and we talk about abstinence. And we have looked at, how we can use this opportunity of Lent to actually take hold of ourselves to break the chain and the yoke of addiction in our lives. So what are those things that, when we talk about addiction, we talk about the substance abuse or substance addiction, and of course we talk about the behavioral addiction. So when we talk about the substance addiction, there are two types. Actually, we call it AOD, alcohol and other drugs. Alcohol and other drugs. So the first is alcohol, and guess what? I mean, your addiction may not necessarily be all the substances of like that, Even there are other food. I have a friend, my friend may be even listening to me right now, who is addicted to gari. I don't know whether you know what is called gari. Gari, it's something that is made. It's like a granule, I don't know how to describe it really, but it's made from cassava, and it has this sour kind of taste sometimes that could actually get you addicted to it. So I know not only my friend, I have a couple of people that are actually addicted to gari like that. You see, that gari is acceptable, it's food, it's what you can eat, whatever. But you see, when your manner and the way of actually using it becomes problematic, you need to it needs to be dealt with. So during this Lent is a time to look at things like that. So you may also have one thing or the other that you eat, like chocolate, like whatever that you think you can't do without. Candy, that every now and then you are just with it, you just want to eat that every now and then. Or maybe it's a fast food, you don't want to cook at home, but you're always going, and that's where you spend the rest of your money, and then instead of cooking at home, well, you may have to look at that too. So addiction is not just to substances alone, could be to other things. But when we talk about substance abuse or addiction to substances, we talk about AOD, alcohol, and other drugs. So alcohol in this case can be, like I say, can be dry gin, can be wine, can be beer, and so on and so forth. Could be even the locally brewed drinks that that are very alcoholic, and then they actually, the way they make us feel, and many people have actually been mesmerized because of those things. Also, we talk about drugs such as cocaine, heroin, Mira. Mira is very common in Kenya here. We talk about cat, and of course, we talk about cigarettes, even tea. I know people don't want to hear that people are addicted to tea. And what I always tell people is that you can just put yourself to the test by answering just this one question. If you don't drink tea, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel headache? Do you feel something is missing? If you have not taken tea and you begin to feel that way, especially when you start feeling headache, yes, it means you are dependent on tea. And you see that the moment you start drinking the tea, the headache is gone. Then you may be addicted to it also. So you can tell yourself, this is for Kenyans in particular, that during this Lent, I am not going to drink tea. And let's see how that goes. So also we have some behaviors that you may want to give up during this period. Before we went on break, I was talking about sex. Also, we talk about certain kind of food that you may want to give up. And then you want to give up gambling. Gambling may be in different forms. You don't really have to do it to make money. It may be linked to video games in such a way that because the reward you are getting from it keeps you doing that. And why it's problematic is that by the time you engage in that activity, you see yourself neglecting other things you are supposed to do. It could be shopping, and it could be even physical exercise, that going for jogging every day. By the time you see that jogging comes first in your life than any other thing, probably it may not be the good things you are doing at that time, even though jogging or taking exercise actually is a good thing in itself, but the manner in which you're actually doing it may not be correct or may not be doing well. And of course, we need to watch that. So one question people always ask during Lent is, what are you giving up? That's one question people always ask, what are you giving up? Or they say, what are you giving up this Lent? What are you giving up this Lent? And as you are listening to me, you can begin to ask yourself that same question. What are you giving up this Lent? So you say to yourself, what am I giving up this Lent? So what are you giving up? So in Lent, what is expected to give up? A favorite thing. That's part of what they call fasting. You're supposed to give up something. But in this case, because we're talking about Lent and addiction, it's simply to say, is to give up addictive substance or addictive behavior at this Lent. And when I'm talking about giving them up, don't be like my friend. I always cite the example of one of my friends who during Lent say, I'm not going to drink beer. And it's because usually he drinks 1 or 2 bottles of beer every day. So he said during Lent, I am not going to drink beer. So what he does, or what he was doing, is that he will keep the bottle of beer that he was supposed to drink every day, will be storing them somewhere. You can imagine in 40 days, how many bottles would that be? It will be between 40 and 80 bottles. And guess what? When Lent was over, he started. That's not what we are talking about. Or maybe you are kind of a parent that is very easy for you to spank and beat your children. Any small thing, you have already slapped them. You can tell yourself also that during this Lent, you are giving up slapping people. And when you are doing that also, don't be like another friend of mine who will tell the children, oh, it is Lent, I'm not going to beat you. It is Lent, I'm not going to beat you. And when Lent was over, he counted how many times supposed to have beaten them and did all the beating that same day. No, that's not what we are talking about here. One of the way you actually deal with this is that what you say you are not going to do again, it's an opportunity for you actually to detach from them. That if you can succeed in abstaining from those things, either that substance or that behavior for 40 days, you should be able, because it means you have the capacity, you have the energy, you have the control to control them for life. That you can say to yourself, I've broken the chain of this addiction once and for all through the help of God during this Lenten season. So, this is not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy at all. It requires a lot of efforts. The one thing is first is that it requires what they call hard decision. Are you able to recognize that thing you are addicted to and able to take that decision right now, even as you listen to me, to say that these things, I'm done with it? Or these things during this Lent, I'm not going to do it. Remember again, when you say you're not going to do it during this Lent, it is not to now resume back to them in a double portion after Lent. Lent should help you to actually manage them into your future, that if you can manage them during Lent, you should be able to be managed forever. So, hard decision to be able to say, I have decided, because that's where the problem lies. That is why when you take somebody who is addicted even to rehab or to the best rehabilitation center ever, I bet you if that person have not decided, if that person is not willing, if that person is not ready, we are wasting our time. Because the time you put the person in rehab, remember, the person have no access. So because the person have no access and it's not deliberate, that's what takes you to the other one, to be intentional. It is not deliberate. Guess what's going to happen? The person comes back today. Within the next 2 weeks, the person starts all over again. You know, I remember when in one treatment center where I used to work, we were asking the people who are addicted to different kind of substances, and we're saying, if you finish your rehabilitation program, will you drink again, or will you smoke again? Will you snort again, or will you do this again? You know what majority of them said? As long as I don't see it. So what we are saying is that when you are making that hard decision, it has to be intentional. And that's the second thing. You make the hard decision, then you have to be intentional. Intentional is that you really not just decided, what you are doing it purposefully, that this period of Lent, you are giving up these things again, not just because it's addiction, for the greater glory of the name of God. You say, I'm letting go. This has caused so much trouble for me. It's not even healthy for me. It may look good, but it is not profitable, and I am letting it go. And the third thing is to be committed, commitment. So when you take the hard decision and you are intentional about it, you have to commit yourself to it, to say, yes, I am dropping this during this Lent. I'm letting go this during this Lent, and I'm going to be committed to it. Yes, your cravings will come. Yes, the urges will be there. There you may feel like the triggers may be all around you to get into it. You know, the people, the places, the situations may be slamming all around you. But with the grace of God, that through your fasting and through your prayers, you know, you'll be able to master those situations, that you do not get back to them. So when we are now talking about Lent and your addiction, is simply saying that because we talk about giving up or abstaining or fasting, it helps us also to translate that into things that we are struggling with, in things that are making life miserable for us, things that are, that maybe we have even tried. I was playing a movie for some of my students today. Actually, it was today. The movie is Flight. And we saw this girl, Nicole, who actually was a heroin addict. And the heroin addict, what she did, that she have said to herself, I am not going to do this anymore. But then she was trying to leave home and got into the car, and she picked her phone. And when she picked her phone, you know who she called? She called the drug dealer. And this is the place where she normally goes to do stripping and to do a lot of things that actually encourages her to inject more heroin. And then by the time she called this person, you know what she was saying? Oh, you should not pick. You should not pick. You should not pick. Of course, it would have been a help for her if this person did not pick the call. But now the person picked it. And then what happened? They made an appointment. She had to go there. What exactly she said she doesn't want to go again, that's exactly what she got back to. You know, it may be hard. People do make decisions. People do make effort. But when your effort, your hard decision, your effort is not backed up with your intention, the real positive intention to actually quit, and you are not committed to it, it may not really work the way you think it may be. So again, during this Lent, let us let go of all those things. It could be smoking, it could be drinking, it could be whatever that we are doing that we are addicted to. Let us take hard decision, and then let us be intentional about it, and let us be committed to it, and then remember, all in the grace of God, because without God, we can't do it alone. And the people in the Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotic Anonymous, whichever support group they belong to, believe it, know what I'm saying, that this addiction has taken hold of us, and that we are powerless. And it is only through God that we can regain our power and our control over our addiction. Lent is a period to do that. And may God continue to grant us the grace to take hold of this moment to break the chain of addiction in our lives. Have a nice day, and God bless you.